Webb, Director of School Feeding Program. Dr. Timar Stevenson, the Senior Education Officer. And from the Ministry of Health, Mr. Howard Lynch, Chief Technical Director, Policy Planning and Development, Dion Keynes, and Mr. Jerome Johnson from the Ministry of Health. So we welcome them here. In the gallery, we have amongst us Vanetta Nurse, Nutrition Officer at UNICEF. Donna Marie, also from UNICEF. Vanessa White Barrow, nutritionist, University of Technology. And we have from the Heart Foundation of Jamaica, Mrs. Barbara Magaw, K. Maurice Cook. I hope I have pronounced that correctly. And from the Jamaica Youth Advocacy Network, Mr. Jonathan Atkins, Natalia Burton, and Dashawn Carter. So, on behalf of the members of the Senate, I welcome you all to the sitting this morning. And grand announcement. I understand that today is the birthday celebration for one Mr. Lambert Brown. 2 days ago. And so we want to recognize you that you have gone around the world, 365. $365. There you, Janice. Well, good. And Donna, your husband. Okay, so we wish you, let us not get out of control now, but we, you know, Art Lambert, don't get excited, man. You know, but it is good when you can celebrate one more year and continue to be in good health. So we recognize all the birthday celebrants. All right. Statements by ministers. Sorry. Senator.
I think Senator Allen had sent a request to participate via Zoom. Well, normally you ask permission.
Yes, sir. Well, I was not so notified. But members, the request from Senator Allen for her to join virtually, and I put it to the membership of the Senate. Those in favor? Those against, the ayes have it.
Thank you, Mr. President, and thank you for your kind birthday wishes.
All right. Statements by ministers. Minister
in Education.
Dana Dixon Morris. Dana Morris Dixon.
Thank you. Mr. President, I believe it is being emailed out to the team. It was emailed to the Senate team, so it should be sent to all of the members here, please. All right. Mr. President?
If it's not too much trouble, Mr. President, could we just hold for a couple of minutes? We haven't seen this circulated electronically, no.
Okay.
The convention is that it's circulated. Hard copy, I have no problem with it being circulated electronically, just so long as we get it.
It's on. All right. What I will do, Senator Bunting, And members, it's done? 5 minutes. Okay, I will just continue through the agenda and we can recommit to this. So we don't have any dead space, all right? Where's the clerk? You will deal with it? All right. Announcements.
Laid on the table of the Senate today are the following: annual report and audited financial statements of the Women's Center of Jamaica Foundation for the financial year 2016-2017, annual report of the Private Security Regulation Authority for the financial year 2018-2019, and its ministry paper numbered 13 of 2025, entitled Annual Report of the Private Security Regulation Authority for the financial year 2018-2019. Annual report and audited financial statements of the Sports Development Foundation for the calendar year 2020. Annual report and audited financial statements of the Montego Bay Free Zone Company Limited for the financial year 2021-2022. Annual report and audited financial statements of the Professional Engineers Registration Board for the financial year 2022-2023. Annual report of the Tourism Product Development Company for the financial year 2022-2023. Annual report and audited financial statements of the Cultural, Health, Arts, Sports, and Education Fund for the financial year 2023-2024. Annual report and audited financial statements of the Electoral Commission of Jamaica for the financial year 2023-2024. Annual report and statement of account of the Bank of Jamaica for the year ended December 31st, 2024. Statement on fiscal performance of the Independent Fiscal Commission for the period April to December 2024. Annual report of the Public Accounts Committee, PAC, of the House of Representatives on its examination of ministries, departments, and agencies during the period February 2022 to February 2025. The Public Procurement Competition Thresholds Order 2025 and its resolution under the Public Resolution Act. In respect of the Auditor General's Department Certified Appropriations Account, Table R, in relation to the Ministry of Justice, Head 28,000, the year 2019-2020, Head 28,000C, Ministry of Justice for the year 2019-2020, Head 2011, the Accountant General's Department for the year 2020-2021, Head 42,035, the Department of Government Chemists for the year 2022-2023, Head 6,000, Office of the Services Commission for the year 2020-2021. Ministry papers entitled Cabinet Agenda Issues numbered 14 to 17 of 2025, dated July 1st and 8, 15, 16, and 17, 2024. Numbered 18 to 21 of 2025, dated September 2, 16, 19, and 23, 2024. Annual report and audited financial statements of the Jamaica Bauxite Institute for the financial year 2022-2023, and its ministry paper number 2022 of 2025, entitled Annual Report and Audited Financial Statements of the Jamaica Bauxite Institute for the financial year 2022-2023. And finally, the National School Nutrition Policy of 2025.
Bills brought from the Honourable House of Representatives.
The following is a message from the Speaker of the House of Representatives. I have the honor to advise the Honourable Senate that on the 29th day of April 2025, the following bills were passed in the House of Representatives. An Act to amend the Offences Against the Person Act with 3 amendments, an Act to amend the Child Care and Protection Act with 3 amendments, and an Act to amend the Criminal Justice Administration Act also with 3 amendments. The Most Honourable Juliet Holness, Speaker of the House of Representatives.
Mr. President, on behalf of the Minister of Foreign Affairs and Foreign Trade, I signify my willingness to take charge of all 3 bills.
A bill shortly entitled the Offences Against the Person Amendment Act 2025 read a first time. A bill shortly entitled the Child Care and Protection Amendment Act 2025, read a first time. A bill shortly entitled the Criminal Justice Administration Amendment Act 2025, read a first time.
Mr. President, I beg to give notice of second reading of the bills.
Mr. President, the Speaker of the House of Representatives wishes to further advise this Honourable Senate that on the 6th day of May 2025, the following bills were passed in the House of Representatives. An act to amend the Pensions Public Service Act to provide public officers who were born between August 1, 1961 and February 28, 1968, or 3 rather, the option to retire before they attain the age of 65 years and to receive any pension, gratuity, or other allowance due and payable to them, and to validate and confirm as lawful all actions taken or omissions made by any person in relation to the granting of normal retirement during the period commencing April 1, 2018, and ending on the date of operation of this Act and for connected matters with no amendment. Also, an act to make provision for the designation of projects as approved, large-scale projects or economic activities as approved, pioneer industries, to provide tax relief in relation to projects and activities so designated, to operationalize the tax incentives for large-scale projects and pioneer industries, to establish an application and management committee as part of the process of approving participants of large-scale projects and pioneer industries, to repeal and replace the Income Tax Relief Large-Scale Projects and Pioneer Industries Act 2013, and to provide for connected matters was passed with no amendment. That is also from the Most Honourable Juliet Holness, Speaker of the House of Representatives.
Mr. President, I signify my willingness to take charge of the bill shortly entitled the Pensions Public Service Amendment and Validation Act 2025. And in addition, on behalf of the Minister of Industry, Investment and Commerce, I signify my willingness to take charge of the bill shortly entitled the Large-Scale Projects and Pioneer Industries Tax Relief Act 2025.
A bill shortly entitled the Pensions Public Service Amendment and Validation Act 2025, read a first time, and a bill shortly entitled the Large-Scale Projects and Pioneer Industries Tax Relief Act 2025, read a first time.
Mr. President, I beg to give notice of second reading of the two bills.
Petitions, papers, reports from committees, notices of motions given orally. All right, Senator, Minister.
Mr. President, on behalf of the Minister of Industry, Investment and Commerce, I beg to give notice that at the next meeting of the Senate, he will move, whereas Section 22B1 of the Public Procurement Act, hereinafter referred to as the Act, provides that the relevant competition threshold shall determine the application of any A, level of competition for public procurement, and B, method of procurement for restricted competition. And whereas Section 22B3 of the Act provides that for the purposes of Section 22B1, the Minister may, by order, subject to affirmative resolution, prescribe the value limits for the relevant competition thresholds for the procurement of goods, works, or services under the Act. And whereas on the 29th day of April 2025, the Minister made the Public Procurement Competition Thresholds Order 2025. Now, therefore, be it resolved by this Honourable Senate as follows. 1, this resolution may be cited as the Public Procurement Competition Thresholds Order 2025 resolution. And 2, the Public Procurement Competition Thresholds Order 2025 is hereby affirmed.
Senator Brown.
Thank you, President. I have two motions to move, and I assure the President that I will not describe anything in the way Senator Bunting described it the last time. Mr. President, I beg to give notice that at the next meeting of the Senate, I will move. Whereas in recent times, hundreds of Jamaican hotel workers have taken industrial action in protest against low wages and terms of conditions at work, and whereas one such term of employment highlighted by such strikes is the precarious, repeated fixed-term contracts of employment, and whereas such practice can be abusive and oppress workers, not only in the tourism sector, but throughout other sections of our economy, and whereas our Labor Relations and Industrial Dispute Act, promulgated in 1975, provides that an industrial dispute can be over the engagement or non-engagement of a worker, which brings this egregious abuse of the contract work device into conflict with the spirit and intent of Jamaica labor laws. And whereas the egregious abuse of the contract work device is at variance with the decent work agenda of the International Labour Organization, and whereas different members of this Senate have from time to time called for action to arrest the spread of this colorable abuse of the contract work device, which undermine the establishment of good industrial relations practices. And be it resolved that this Senate expresses its abhorrence to the abuse of fixed-term contract by some employers in Jamaica, and be it further resolved that the Senate calls on the government to immediately review the relevant laws with the aim of protecting Jamaican workers from such oppressive contracts, and be it further resolved that the Senate appoints a select committee to consider and recommend possible legislative approaches to eliminate the abuse of the contract work device as a means of denying workers the full range of employment-related rights and job security to which they should be legally entitled, and with respect to which they need and deserve effective legal protection. That's the first motion. Second motion, for which, Mr. President, I beg to give notice that at the next meeting of the Senate I will move, goes as follows. Whereas 42 years ago, the Education Tax Act 1983 was passed as a part of the taxation measures of the then government. And whereas the proceeds of that tax was ostensibly for education purpose, but was never used, and whereas the revenue from such taxes goes directly to the consolidated fund, and whereas the tax in reality is an income tax on workers and employers, and whereas this tax has to be paid by all eligible employees, including hundreds of thousands of Jamaicans earning minimum wages and others below the current PAYE tax threshold. And whereas the education tax is in reality a form of income tax, and whereas the provisions are in the current budget to increase PAYE tax threshold for people earning more than $32,700 per week, but no provisions are made for relief of hundreds of thousands of workers earning less than $20,000 per week. Be it resolved that this Senate calls on the government to immediately review the Education Tax Act of 1983 with a view to relieving workers earning below 20.
Senator Brown,
Did someone just speak?
well, since you didn't hear, continue, Senator Brown.
I didn't hear it, so let me read the result. Be it resolved that the Senate calls on the government of Jamaica to immediately review the Education Tax Act of 1983 with a view to relieving workers earning below $20,000 per week from having to pay tax on their income. May it please you, Mr. President, I leave it to Andrea Stevens.
So, thank you very much, Senator Brown. And as you commented on in your motion, we have joining us, and I wish for the Senate to welcome them as they get seated. We have from the Hillel Academy, 50 students in attendance. And there are amongst them 4 teachers. So today the Senate is filled, Madam Minister, with different persons, different ages, stakeholders, right across the education sector. So I expect everybody to be on their best behavior. All right? And I believe that the Hillel Academy is here at the invite of Senator Fraser Baines. And her son is, yes, and we wish to recognize Senator Fraser Baines' son, who is amongst the attendees from Hillel. So we know that Senator Fraser Baines is going to be on her best behavior. The son will now see what mommy does on a Friday in the Senate, live and direct. So we welcome you, all the children from Hillel Academy. And as our substantive president would always say, is that this is a place that at any time that you wish to attend, you can attend. All right? We move on. Madam Minister, you ready? Okay. Question and answers to questions.
President, I'm tempted to invite Nathan to come and sit in his mother's seat, but I have no such power. Mr. President, I beg to give notice that at the expiration of 21 days, I will ask the leader of government business in the Senate the following questions standing in my name.
Thank you. And we will now have recommittal to statement of ministers. I understand that they do that? All right. All right. Yeah. All right. Motions that may be made at the commencement of public business require notice. Motions relating to sittings of the Senate. Motions for leave to introduce bills. Presentation of bills without leave of the Senate first obtained. And public business. And I will now ask for recommittal to statement of ministers. Those in favor? Those against? The ayes have it. Minister.
Thank you, Mr. President. And Mr. President, I would like to start by not going through all the names, but acknowledging the presence of the leadership team at the Ministry of Education, Skills, Youth and Information, also representatives from the Ministry of Health, also our reps from UNICEF, who is our great partner to our country, and also our reps from the Heart Foundation of Jamaica and the Jamaica Youth Advocacy Network. And now I see the beautiful children from the Hillel Academy. And so I want to acknowledge all of those who are here with us in the Senate this morning. Mr. President, I should have said I'm speaking from a seat that's definitely not my own. Mr. President, Mr. President and esteemed colleagues, the work of building an inclusive, equitable, and efficient and effective education system is urgent and ongoing. It requires clear direction, strong partnerships, and plenty of courage to act decisively. This month of May is being celebrated as National Child Month, and this year it is being observed under the theme, Act Now, Stand Against Child Abuse and Exploitation. This theme serves as a call to action for individuals, communities, and institutions to take decisive steps to protect children from harm and ensure their safety and well-being. Throughout May, the Ministry of Education, Skills, Youth and Information, in collaboration with our key partners, including the Child Protection and Family Services Agency, the Early Childhood Commission, and the National Child Month Committee, will host a range of activities. These activities include a 31 Days of Children Rights campaign, including child conversations for children with special needs. We're also having mental wellness events in our schools, and there's some other initiatives that include creative competitions, professional development sessions, and care package distributions. All of these are aimed at raising awareness, empowering children, and reinforcing our national commitment to child protection. It is on this premise, Mr. President, that I'm pleased this morning to provide an update on the work being advanced, some of the work being advanced by the Ministry of Education, Skills, Youth and Information to improve outcomes across the education sector for our nation's children. From literacy and inclusive education to nutrition, student welfare, and learning environment upgrades, all interconnected pillars of a broader transformation. Mr. President, let me begin with an area that remains a top priority for this government, and that is improving literacy. We believe that the ability to read and comprehend is critical to all other learning. If a child cannot read, their chances of thriving across the curriculum will be significantly reduced. That is why we're pursuing a comprehensive approach to improve literacy outcomes, beginning at the foundational level and continuing through secondary education. Earlier this year, we launched a tactical pilot led by our Chief Education Officer, and it's aimed at boosting student performance in CSEC English and mathematics. While both subjects are critical, we know that literacy specifically, the ability to comprehend written material, is at the heart of success in every single subject. This pilot focuses on 3 core pillars: enhanced teaching quality, so we're working with the teachers quite a bit; extended learning time, so in these schools, we are extending the school day. We also have teaching happening during the holidays at the same time. And the third component is strategic accountability. And this is where we monitor and continuously monitor what's happening so that we can keep intervening where we see things aren't working. This strategy targets 56 secondary schools using data, professional development, and student engagement to drive meaningful improvement. As a part of this effort, I've given a clear directive for greater training because we have to recognize that every teacher, regardless of subject area, must also see themselves as a teacher of reading. Literacy cannot be confined to the English class alone. It must be embedded across all teaching and learning experiences. But we're not waiting until secondary school to act, because for me, I have seen many secondary schools reaching out to me saying that the students they get at first form are not able to read. That is not acceptable. And my commitment is to ensure that our children are leaving primary school able to read. That's our commitment, that's our government's commitment to our children of Jamaica. So beginning in September 2025, reading will be formally timetabled for grades 1 to 3, grades 1 to 3 in all primary schools. And I'd like to note that some schools are already there, and we have to recognize those schools that are going the extra mile. And I can recognize a couple schools who are like that. Yesterday, I had the pleasure of being at 5 schools, and one of the schools I was at yesterday was Gregory Park Primary School. And I met a lovely teacher named Tazana Henry, and she's related to our Marshall. It's our Marshall's niece. And she was working on, she was one of the key teachers who worked on an intervention program for the children at Gregory Park Primary School. At Gregory Park Primary School, the principal, Mr. Williams, he got the results of the reading test, and it was not good. And he called his teachers together, including Ms. Henry, and they sat and they did an intervention plan. And I got a chance to look at the intervention plan, and it was really good. And that's the caliber of teachers and principals we have in our system. And we have to applaud those teachers and principals like Mr. Williams. He didn't wait on an announcement that we're going to timetable reading in grades 1 to 3. He didn't wait on the ministry. He did it. He did it already. And when I went to his school yesterday, the students told me their mantra around reading, and they shouted it at me. They said, "Readers are leaders." And they were so passionate when they were claiming that. It was so beautiful to see. I also recognize the principal at Constitution Hill Primary School, Mrs. Melisha Matterson. And I went to her school on Read Across Jamaica Day. And I had a 3-year-old girl coming up to me and reading, and the 4-year-olds were reading. And these are due to interventions by the principals and the teachers in those schools, and we need to recognize them. But that's not the case in all schools. And so what we're doing in the ministry is mandating that reading be timetabled. In addition to that, we are going to be doing training over the summer. We're already starting to print a lot of material, because for our children, they need to be able to read, have the material to do the reading. One of the key things too, and this is why it's good to go around and talk to people and listen to people. One teacher said to me that our boys really don't like reading. And I said, it's not just the boys. There's some girls who don't like reading too, right? But I know our boys are different. And they were saying to me, you know, most of the material that's sent to schools are written by women, and the stories are not necessarily ones that the boys are interested. And that conversation led me to think that some of the reading material needs to be in the form of, for example, graphic novels. I know some of your children would be very interested in graphic novels. That's what they prefer to read. They don't want to see all the words on the paper. Yes, exactly. And so you understand. You have a parent. You're a parent like me. I had to buy the graphic novels quite grudgingly, because that was the way to get them to read. So whatever we have to do, we're going to be creative in terms of the material that we will distribute. Now, this is a critical intervention designed to ensure that no child leaves primary school unable to read. To support this, we are prioritizing our 189 primary and 56 secondary, what we call NSLIP schools. Those are the schools that have been determined to be performing below the level that we want for our children. And so we are going to focus on those 189 primary and 56 secondary schools, ensuring students receive the dedicated hours of reading instruction they need during the school day. What I value most about this work, Mr. President, is that accountability is built into every aspect and layer. There are regular quality assurance visits, monthly performance tracking, and clear expectations for the students and the leadership at the school level. Principals, board chairmen and women, and our teachers are central to this effort. They are responsible for ensuring instructional support and fostering a school culture where literacy performance is a shared responsibility. We're also advanced in developing a comprehensive AI assistive tool, the Jamaica Learning Assistant, which will give our students access to further resources to improve their literacy skills outside of the traditional teaching environment. Mr. President, this is how we build a strong foundation. This is how we break the cycle of underperformance, and this is how we set our children on a path to lifelong learning and success. Mr. President, no conversation about student performance is complete without talking about student welfare, and that includes nutrition. Further to this, Cabinet recently approved the National School Nutrition Policy, which I'm incredibly pleased to note has been tabled in the Senate today. The Ministry of Education, Skills, Youth and Information, with support, key support from the Ministry of Health and Wellness, has the mandate to ensure that proper nutrition is established within public schools through the vehicle of the National School Nutrition Policy and Standards. And they have incorporated quite a bit of research and findings on the subject matter from the United Nations and the World Health Organization. It is widely accepted that good nutrition practices in schools can improve cognitive and academic performance. Depending on the type of food provided, the size of food rations, and the program duration. It is also acknowledged that in order to improve children's nutritional status, regular meals that significantly address nutritional deficiencies in children's diet must be managed. This was also underscored in the National Operational Action Plan for the Prevention and Control of Obesity in Children, and that was done by the Ministry of Health and Wellness in 2016. The plan cautions that the high, and I'm quoting, the high prevalence of overweight and obesity among children should therefore be a cause of concern to policymakers and health professionals, as it has implications for the healthcare system and the economic productivity of the countries affected, end quote. The policy is a comprehensive, multi-sectoral framework that lays out clear principles and actions to promote healthy eating and active living in all Jamaican schools. It will ensure all students have access to safe, nutritious foods, limit the sale and promotion of sugary drinks and ultra-processed foods within school environments, mandate nutrition education across the curriculum, strengthen the school feeding program, and foster partnerships between schools, families, farmers, vendors, and communities to build a culture of wellness. It is born of a recognition that our nation cannot advance while our children go to school hungry, are fed foods that compromise their growth and development, or are denied access to the nutrition necessary for learning. In my view, this policy reflects our moral duty, as well as a strategic imperative to provide every child, regardless of socioeconomic background, with safe, affordable, and nutritious food in a school environment that fosters health and learning. Mr. President, the policy will be implemented in all early childhood, primary, secondary, and special education schools, both public and private, and aims to ensure that our children are healthy and ready to learn. The development of this policy was underpinned by so much consultation, and some of the members who have consulted on this are here. Mr. President, I can say with certainty that this was truly a national effort. We engaged parents and students across all parishes, teachers, principals, school boards, health professionals, nutritionists, psychologists, private sector representatives from the food industry, small and large farmers, civil society organizations, advocacy groups, critical ministries, departments, and agencies. Consultations were held face-to-face and online, and multiple iterations of the policy were refined based on the voices of the people. The message from Jamaicans was and still is exceptionally clear. We need this nutrition policy now. I want to thank all the stakeholders who've worked on or provided feedback on the policy to date. I have seen the comments and posts online calling for next steps, and I wish to assure you that the ministry is actively working to advance the implementation of the policy. And we have with us Mrs. Dillette Hopeweb, who is the one who is in charge of our school nutrition program across the entire country. And she is very excited about this. She is ready to go. She has all of her plans in place. She's a great example of a great public sector worker. And we have so many of them. And I want to thank her for all the work that she does. The policy will be implemented on a phased basis over 5 years. While the Ministry of Education, Skills, Youth and Information is the lead implementer for the policy, its success is contingent on the involvement of several stakeholders, including the Ministry of Health and Wellness, the Ministry of Local Government and Community Development, the Ministry of Agriculture, Fisheries and Mining, other public sector organizations, private sector entities, NGOs, families, community, and I want to say, and also my colleagues in the opposition. School nutrition is an area that we really don't need to politicize. It's an area that's important for our children, and I think across the aisle we all agree. I think we both agree that school nutrition is critical, and I want to work with you in implementing this policy. The policy will require partnership and coordination among all of us. And in terms of the ministries and their responsibilities, I will outline them. The Ministry of Health and Wellness will lead on health and promotional activities, physical activities, Jamaica Moves in Schools initiative, the establishment of guidelines for beverages in schools and other related areas. In partnership with the Ministry of Agriculture and Fisheries, the Rural Agricultural Development Agency, RADA, we intend to re-establish and maintain existing school gardens and create new ones. The Jamaica 4-H clubs will offer technical assistance and support in this effort. The Ministry of Local Government and Community Development, the municipal corporations also, will facilitate meetings and ongoing collaboration between the representatives of the municipal corporations and the Ministry of Education and Ministry of Health vis-a-vis vending in and near to schools in furtherance of the development and implementation of a framework to guide such activities. We believe that those who are at the school gates are important partners with us. And so we're not going to be putting anything down or having anything implemented without hearing from them and incorporating them. They are very, very, very important partners with us. And so I'm telling you, we're not moving forward without incorporating them and working with them and hearing from them their thoughts too, because I know that they have the student welfare at hand too, because they do look out for the children. I've seen it myself. Let me pause here, Mr. President, to thank Ministers Tufton, Green, and Mackenzie for their support in this policy. And we had to go through them, we had to work with them, and all three ministers worked very closely with me in relation to finalizing this. And I want to thank them. I want to thank them. And actually, in Minister Green's sectoral presentation, you'll hear some education-related things, which is very exciting because we really feel that education is more than just this ministry. It is also the purview of other areas of government. I also want to thank the technical team in my ministry and across all the relevant ministries for their support to this point and the work that's to follow, because once you do a policy, there's so much more work to be done in terms of implementation. Mr. President, our investment in school nutrition is a strategic component of our National Human Capital Development Agenda. As the Prime Minister recently outlined, more than 60% of our workforce lacks formal training. And this shortage of skilled labor threatens to constrain our long-term growth. To change this trajectory, we must start with the fundamentals, literacy, numeracy, and early childhood development, and ensure that every child enters the classroom ready to learn and thrive. The National School Nutrition Policy directly supports this by tackling one of the most significant, yet often overlooked barriers to learning, which is hunger and poor nutrition. By prioritizing nutrition, especially in the early grades, we're addressing the foundational gaps and setting our students on a stronger path from the very beginning. And this is how we build a skilled, productive, and resilient workforce for the future. Mr. President, please note that we'll also be launching a targeted public education campaign to ensure that everyone understands the policy, its benefits, and their role in making it successful. Through this effort, we will host town halls and community engagements, disseminate simplified versions of the policy in plain language and also in patois. We will empower parents with healthy meal planning resources. So we're going to be realistic. We know what you can get. We know what's in the market. We know what is affordable. And we're going to be putting together healthy meal planning resources for parents so that they understand what are good choices for them and their families. We'll continue to train canteen staff and vendors in nutritious food preparation and involve students as nutrition ambassadors in their schools. We want every Jamaican to read this policy and see it as a contract between the government and our children. To this end, we will therefore publish it publicly and work with our churches, our youth groups, and the media to spread the message. Mr. President, we cannot talk about the nutrition policy without addressing our school feeding program. The policy will strengthen and expand the Nutrition Products Limited program and other school-based meal initiatives by improving meal quality and nutritional content, expanding breakfast offerings to reduce morning hunger, and investing in kitchen infrastructure in schools where necessary. This year, the government is investing over $1 billion to provide breakfast for approximately 69,000 students in the NSLIP schools. Remember earlier, I told you about the schools, the primary schools and the secondary schools that were not performing at the level we wanted, and we were doing interventions. So this breakfast program is specifically for them. This is part of a broader, and I like that you like the info, but this is part of a broader $9 billion program that aims to reach 200,000 children with a nutritious breakfast, snack, and or midday meal. We know, again, that children cannot learn if they are hungry. And in many of these schools that we don't see the performance that we want, they are in communities and in families that are challenged in providing the nutrition. And so we are starting with them in making sure that they have both breakfast and lunch. All our PATH students already get lunch. But if you're in one of these schools, you're going to get breakfast and lunch. And that's an additional $1 billion. Let me be clear. No child should come to school and go through the day without a proper meal. With this policy, we signal to every parent, every teacher, and most importantly, every student, that the government of Jamaica sees them. We hear them, and we're working for them. We're building a nation where no child is left behind because of hunger. We're building a nation where schools are not only places of learning, but also environments of wellness. And so I commend the National School Nutrition Policy to this Honourable Senate and invite all Jamaicans to join us in this necessary journey toward a healthier society. Mr. President, and I'm glad that you support it, Senator Brown. Special education. I want to make a little note there, Mr. President, since I'm giving an update in terms of Child Month and some activities we're doing. Mr. President, equity in education means that every child, regardless of their physical, cognitive, or socioeconomic circumstances, is given a fair chance to learn and thrive. That's why we've developed a new special education policy and backed it with real investment. After over a decade of delay, we're completing the construction of 3 long-promised diagnostic centers. This year, $180 million has been allocated to complete the facility at the College of Agriculture, Science and Education in Portland. We have increased the number of special education needs assistants to 759 across all education regions and doubled their stipends to better reflect the critical support they provide to students with special needs. And Mr. President, on Read Across Jamaica Day, one of the schools I chose to read at was a special needs school. It was the Randolph Lopez School of Hope. And it was such a beautiful experience to be with those children. And they're varying levels of special needs. And these children are as special as every other child. And we have to treat them as such. I went into a classroom that they had at that institution, Mr. President, and they had an entire salon set up for our special needs children. They were teaching them to do nails, they were teaching them to do hair, and the children were so excited and so alive at doing this. These are children that need our support. They need it. The head girl of Randolph Lopez School of Hope said to me that her dream is one day to have her own restaurant and for us to come. Our special needs children have goals. They have dreams, and we have to work really hard, and we haven't done enough. And we're going to have to do more to meet them and to give them the kind support that they need. I remember standing with them and singing karaoke, and they took me to a soca session with them. They wanted to dance to soca. They were full of life. They were just the most amazing children, and I just saw in them that many things can happen for them if we just give them the space to do so. And so, Mr. President, my commitment is to continue on this path with our special needs children in providing the resources that they need. And Mr. President, I should note, when we did Teachers' Day and we went to Clancarty Primary School, we were there and we had the ministry team with us. And some of the ministry team also served as shadows. So the shadows got to take a break too. And that was really very beautiful to see people from the special needs unit of the ministry also taking on the role of shadow for the day. This is, Mr. President, the importance of special needs children. And I will be speaking many more times on special needs children because it's very important. In terms of school infrastructure, and this will be the last thing I'll speak on, Mr. President, we're not stopping at policy and personnel, Mr. President. We're also taking firm steps to improve the physical learning environment in our schools. The Ministry of Education is advancing a comprehensive island-wide school infrastructure program to enhance safety, accessibility, and learning conditions for students, teachers, and administrators. And I have been around the schools. I think my tally is now 42 schools that I have been at. I've been at 42 schools, and I have seen the problems. I have seen the leaks. I have seen the termites. I have seen the issues with my own two eyes, and it is important that we fix them. So let me tell you how we're going to do this. Under this expansive infrastructure initiative, significant upgrades are underway across hundreds of schools in all 7 regions at a cost of $4.5 billion. Works include the construction of additional classrooms, laboratories, and accessibility ramps and lifts, retrofitting of sanitary facilities, installation of security fencing, and modernization of electrical systems. The effort is part of the government's broader strategy to transform the education sector and create inclusive, supportive learning environments. And some of the key highlights from 24-25, we completed the ramp installations at Merle Grove and Gainstead High Schools in Kingston. We also worked with Titchfield High School in terms of accessibility improvements, St. Elizabeth Technical High School, Eltham High School, Knox High School, Bustamante High School. In 25-26 fiscal year, $50 million has been allocated for Edith Dalton James and Brownstown High for ramp and lift installation. So I need to explain this a little bit, Mr. President, to my colleagues. So we would love to make all our schools accessible. That's the goal over time. So how are we doing it? incrementally. What the ministry does is it does a survey of the schools. It finds out which schools have children with disabilities. We also do another thing. When PEP is happening, we get the list of the grade 6 students, we look at what schools they are planning to go to, and we then choose the schools that get the ramps based on who is going to go to those schools. And so it is actually very well thought out, and that's the way we decide. And that's very good. I'm very glad that you've led the way and that we are implementing it. I'm very glad. I'm very, very glad.
Responsible governments do responsible things.
Yes. Irrespective of who suggests it. Safety and security. Security fencing is underway at 11 schools with an investment of $468 million. Fencing is not cheap. It's actually quite an expensive project. So for those 11 schools that we're doing, it's $468 million. In terms of electrical upgrades, 10 schools, including Little London and Savannah Lamar Primary, are receiving electrical upgrades totaling over $429 million. And I've seen that too. In some of the classrooms, it's dark because there's an issue with the electrical system. And so we're putting money there for the schools. Post-Hurricane Beryl repairs, we're still doing some work there. And following Hurricane Beryl, repairs were initiated for over 300 schools. In the initial phase, $2.43 billion was spent to effect repairs. And as of April 30, 2025, 101 schools are complete. 11 are between 70 to 99% completed, and the other schools will be addressed in this fiscal year. In terms of digital learning, and I'm almost done, 10,000 computers have been distributed to high schools to support technology integration. Another 10,000 devices are being distributed to create ICT labs at the primary level, and over 200 smart boards have been distributed to our schools to include our special education institutions. And this has been done by e-learning Jamaica. What is good is when I go to the schools that I've gone to, they always take me to the room. They show me the computers that they got. So every school initially has been given 30 computers, 30 laptops. And so they are able to set up their lab with those 30. And that's an initial contribution to the schools. Mr. President, additionally, as I've said before, all teachers have a laptop assigned to them to enable ICT integration. And I should note that many of them, when I go in their classrooms, I see them using the laptops that the government has provided for them. And that is really great to see. I will speak on Mrs. Francis. I taught her maths class, Senator Crawford. I taught maths on Teachers' Day at Clank. Yes, it was fun. Mean, median, and mode. And it was in Mrs. Francis's. I'm a pre-trained teacher. I'm authorized to teach. And so I was teaching maths. I was doing it free. Remember, there's a little carve out in the act, right? All right. So as I was teaching that class, Mrs. Francis's class, she had a smart TV in her classroom. And she said to me, oh, you know, I use the technology. I use Google Workspace. And she went to her folder and she opened up her folder and she showed me all of her different subfolders that she had for every subject. And she does a PowerPoint or slideshow for each of her classes. And she was showing me how she uses it, and she wanted me to use it. Obviously, the whole time I had to tell her to come and help me to navigate her fancy technology that she had. But our teachers are really committed to our children, and it's so beautiful to see a teacher like Mrs. Francis, grade 4 Francis, using the technology for her students and incorporating the videos. She said, sometimes, you know, they don't want to hear my voice for the whole lesson. So I just show them some videos in the middle of it, and she hyperlinks her videos. That's how the technology is helping in our classrooms. And with the kind assistance of the Digital Foundation, 21 fully equipped smart labs have been established at the primary level. And for the new fiscal year, $108 million has been allocated to provide audio-visual equipment at the secondary level. All projects that we do, all of our infrastructure projects are compliant with the Disabilities Act and includes accessible bathrooms, ramps, and lifts. And so any new project we're doing, we're ensuring in the ministry that they're compatible and they're compliant with the Disabilities Act. So for example, Exchange Primary, we've done 5 classrooms, we've done a new kitchen, we've put in a lift, and we've put in new sanitary facilities, and all of it is compliant. At Homewood High School, we've done 11 classrooms, we've installed a lift and sanitary facilities there. At Jonathan Grant, we did 4 new classrooms. At Papine High, we removed the shift system and commenced phase 1 of a sewage upgrade, and there's so many more. Construction is ongoing at Albert Town and Cedric Titus High, while work continues at Bridgeport High. Procurement is advanced for Westwood High, Port Antonio High, and obviously the Case Diagnostic Center. Pre-construction is on the way at multiple other schools, and in the appendix you see some of the work that we're doing. It's a lot of schools, and we're going to be working through that this financial year. For the 24-25 academic year, the 25-26 year, 400 million, that's an error, 25-26 academic year, 400 million has been invested in TVET programs to include the upgrading of 50 labs and establishment of 5 exemplary labs across secondary schools. And this year, we're going to be using 800 million to support the delivery of TVET programs to include lab upgrades and the establishment of future skills and technology labs in our technical high schools, those 14. So to date, approximately $4.5 billion has been spent for school infrastructure improvements, and another $5.8 billion has been allocated to effect infrastructure upgrades and repair works in the 25-26 fiscal year, to include the TVET upgrades and new equipment for all the science labs across our secondary schools. Mr. President and colleagues, I am very optimistic. I remain optimistic, not because the challenges we face are small, but because I have seen what is possible when our students are supported and encouraged. I have witnessed our young people building homemade solar egg incubators, proposing AI solutions to crime, and competing internationally in robotics. The talent is here. The creativity is here. The future is here. It is our job to remove the obstacles and unleash that potential. So today, I recommit myself and the Ministry of Education team that's here to ensuring that every Jamaican child, regardless of circumstance, has access to the high-quality, inclusive education they deserve. At the start of Child Month, I urge all of us across the political divide and across the nation to work together to make this vision a reality. Thank you, Mr. President.
Thank you, Minister.
I don't know when, since
Senator. All right, Senator Brown. Senator Brown, do not. No, it is not a speaking matter, you know. Remember that we are at statement of ministers. And what the standing order says is that we should hear questions, right? So there are some privileges that are given, and I appreciate that. So it's not for you. All right? Senator Crawford, please don't get distracted by Senator Brown. All right? Thank you.
But Mr. President, while check. Mr. President, while I heard your statement about the standing orders, it is difficult for us to abide by 5 minutes to respond to 31 pages that we got this morning. It would have given us some opportunity to summarize had we been able to consume last night, but we only got it this morning. The minister made many statements, some of which, of course, in principle, we are in agreement with. And I have always stated that you don't have to get zero to fail. So there are always going to be things that we still find that this government is doing that we appreciate. It's not binary to say nothing or something. Yes, and I've accepted many of our recommendations. People would wonder why sometimes our ideas are not willingly put forward. But breakfast now coming on the table was a component of our budget presentation that was made. But we do acknowledge that there are many issues facing education. Indeed, I feel a little bit pressured being here today because today my children are sitting mathematics exam. Today is CXC math. And I'm anxious to see the paper to see if the things that we went over are coming. Because every teacher tried to predict. every teacher tried to predict that based on the last 5 years, this will come, make sure you know this. And you want to know if it came, especially in the back pages that they get a lot from. So I am really wishing to move to see that, and I wish them all the best in this examination. Importantly, we spoke to nutrition. That is an extremely important conversation to have because we continue to have many of our children face food insecurity and the negatives of that. Indeed, Minister, as you have pointed out, there are some even that can afford to buy food, but because the type of food that they buy, they too are suffering from malnutrition. So malnutrition isn't reserved only for those who can't afford. But I have been in the school space to see lunch being coffee strip and cheese or cheese tricks, banana chips, soda. And so even those who can afford don't necessarily consume adequate fuel for learning. This has led, especially among our girls, unfortunately, to many being found to have iron deficiency. And iron deficiency lead to lethargy, lead to feeling sleepy most of the times, leading to an inability to concentrate. And it brings me to question if we have established in our minds what is the nutritional profile necessary for the different genders and the different age groups. For example, is protein more important for a 14-year-old boy in higher sum, while iron for a 14-year-old girl in higher portions than maybe an 8-year-old girl or a 16-year-old boy? Because that type of profiling then allows for recommended meals along the continuum as they continue to learn. Not just one type of meal that helps some and don't help others. However, there are certain things that we heard that are of concern to us. One of which along this nutritional component is that our reading in a few years ago was that PATH was only doing 3 meals per day. My understanding is that that has increased to 5, and we would want that to be confirmed. However, the suggested average cost of the meal was, in 2023, it was 3. The average cost of the meal was $280. We would have seen where the Association of Social Workers asked for this to be increased to $600, and the reality that the same nutrition that we speak is incapable to be covered with the $280. $280 can't even buy a cheese patty, and the cheese might add a little more nutrition to the patty. However, the current proposal of $280, if that is correct, principals have come forward to say that it is inadequate to provide meals from the quantity, worse the quality, that is focusing on the minister today. Yes. So Minister, I'd like to know if we have established that. Additionally, the budget that was put forward and the Minister of Finance utterances don't seem to match, as I've indicated here before, because those numbers that the Minister of Finance put forward was an intention to feed 200,000 children. That in other documents would have been contradicted, and our information is that the PATH program is less than 160,000 children. If there's 160,000 children being fed by PATH, on what basis, therefore, did we assume it to be sufficient for only 69,000 to receive breakfast? This would leave approximately another 100,000 not being considered. Now, when I heard you say that there are some schools that are being targeted, nutrition, and that's because of their performance, nutrition can't be school specific. I mean, as high a school as Campion might have a child with nutritional food insecurity. And so, therefore, I think that the variable of selection being the schools that are underperforming would leave many of our children to be at risk of continued food insecurity. In fact, I heard we say that I think we have 40 secondary schools or 60, I don't remember exactly. But the last rating suggests that over 112 schools had less than 50% of their children receiving 5 subjects, including math and English. So what was the variable that was used to decide which schools are underperforming? Because I would presume that less than 50% receiving maths and English should qualify you in that underperforming segment. But I suggest that we review this 69 that we have selected only by the schools that they are attending. Additionally, additionally, Mr. President, I think as well that while some numbers were given, quick calculations will prove that these large numbers can be quite immaterial in solving the issues that we face. One of which would be a large number such as 10,000 students received a iPad or a computer of some sort. 10,000 students would receive a computer. I believe that was being said that that was going to be in the secondary institutions. Mr. President, our information is that the secondary institutions have over 220,000 students. So 10,000 for the year would be extremely immaterial. Now, let us never forget that there are also well, the good eye would have to be very small to see the 10,000 out of the 220,000. Simple math would tell you it would take 22 years for us, therefore, to give each student a computer when they're only going to be there for 5 and each year a new set is coming in. So while 10,000 might sound a lot, the reality is that it is insignificant and immaterial in a time that the world is depending on computer and computer usage and computer learning. Additionally, a large amount of $4 billion was stated for review of schools, but when you look at the numbers, you see a school getting $2 million, a school getting $4 million, and indeed, with 1,010 schools, the average out of the $4 billion is $4 million. Most schools can't do what they need to do with 4 million. So many of our schools have been totally dilapidated with termite problems, with over time. Yes, I hope the minister don't listen to you, because if you're going to depend on no. But he was there as an advisor, you know. That's why the thing popped down. So, you know, the thing popped down to this level because they used to listen to his advice. Minister, don't listen to him. How can you depend on the alumni's willingness to fund education? You can't depend on that. You will encourage that, but you can't depend on it. So while 4 billion sound a lot, divided by 1,000 is 4 million. And we have schools that we have heard reports of criminals using it as an escape route because it don't have sufficient fencing. So we're glad for the 11, but we're still worried about the 200 that still don't have sufficient fencing. Charlie Mount High School is one of them. I'm recommending put it on the 12th, but they don't have satisfactory fencing. And the risk, it's hard. It's today's maths day, and an Englishman just keep forcing foolish mathematics. Half empty and half full is the same. So come on. Come on, man. The reality is that we have a circumstance that we have seen on the news where a child came through an access point that wasn't determined for the child and ended up in a car accident. We have seen that on the news in Portmore. We have seen on the news where criminals have pursued each other onto a school compound and committed a murder or injury. We have seen that on the news. The circumstances of our society therefore demand.
Senator Crawford, you have a question for the minister? You run up, but you run up from way out of Sabina Park and I come to bowl the ball along, sir.
I don't know if the 5 minutes is no longer allowed. But Mr.
5 minutes worth of run up?
Yeah, no, well, I am the... You know what, Mr. President? But I think that we are doing a disservice to democracy if the minister can speak on 31 pages. All right, I'm going to ask 500 questions.
Remember...
Let me ask a question. I'm going to ask some questions. I'm going to ask a question for every single line on every single page. No? That is also disallowed. Question. You see? We must consume 31 pages today. All right. Question number 1. Minister, can you confirm that there are schools in the secondary system that to this point have not received their textbooks? Understanding that we're now at exam time, there's one particular school that has reported to have asked for 580 math and English books and received none. Can you confirm that to be true? Minister, can you confirm? No, the statement was not on nutrition only. Sorry? I'll give you the school of the year. Oh, well, the team can confirm if all schools have received. No, let me ask my questions. Minister, can you confirm that recent research have indicated that 52% of Jamaicans are facing food insecurity? Can you therefore confirm that that number of 52% of 440,000 children would do off the breakfast program of 69,000? Indeed, 52. So the minister should be able to confirm if over 210,000 persons, based on research, children, would be facing food insecurity. Would the minister therefore indicate her opinion if she believes that 69,000 for breakfast is immaterial to contribute to this problem and indeed inadequate? Can the minister confirm if only children on path are receiving lunch assistance? And can the minister confirm or deny if there are many children who are not on path that may be in almost similar circumstances and in need of assistance? Can the minister confirm if there has been a costing to the likely meal that will contribute to the necessary nutrients? And if that has been costed, can the minister confirm what is the cost for that particular type of meal that would lead to this level of nutrition for the particular child? Can the minister confirm, as was made in the statement, that the students to receive lunch are from certain particular schools that have been identified? And can the minister therefore indicate what would happen to children outside of those schools that may be facing equal and similar difficulties? Can the minister confirm? Can the minister? Yes. Can the minister confirm? Can the minister confirm it to be a fact that out of burial, over 300 schools were indicated to need intervention from infrastructure work? Can the minister therefore confirm, based on this statement, that only 111 have been completed even to this point, and that is less than 50%? Sorry? No. Are you crazy? Oh, yeah, I don't know the, yeah. Oh, okay, right. Can the minister confirm if she's aware of the number of schools needed intervention for fencing from a security standpoint or from an access standpoint? If the minister can confirm this number, can the minister confirm what % of those schools are 11 schools, as was stated in this statement, going to impact? Can the minister confirm? Okay. Can the minister confirm that she did report in this statement that 10,000 computers were distributed to high schools to support technology intervention this year? Can the minister confirm or deny that the total number of students at the secondary level is over 200,000, and by extension making 10,000 immaterial to the intervention necessary in a technology age? Can the minister confirm? Can the minister confirm if the investment in TVET, that there have been multiple schools who have completed level 2 and not received certification, though their children have completed level 2 in TVET courses such as electrical and others? And can the minister indicate if there is any system currently in place to ensure that those students will receive their TVET certification to the level 2 standard? Finally, can the minister confirm what are the tests that will be done at these 3 diagnostic centers, and what are the levels of skill sets that will be permanently employed so that persons can be tested at these 3 diagnostic centers? These are the questions that we have.
1 minute. 1 minute. Senator Binns.
Thank you, Mr. President. And Mr. President, you know I have to rise to welcome, as the acting president did earlier. But I have to welcome the students and teachers from Hillel, grade 3-1 and grade 3-2.
Senator Binns, I think that you have a particular interest in that grade.
I do, sir.
Would you ask the particular interest to stand?
Apart from the fact that everybody heard me talk about Nathan Charles.
Nathan Charles, stand up, make we see you.
Nathan Charles is here today.
Stand up, make we see you.
Stand up, Nathan Charles.
Oh.
So, you can sit, baby. So, you know, we can't do this here, but when they go for lunch, you can ask him. Ask him about the colors and you'll be surprised what he tells you. All on his own. But Mr. President, I really want to welcome the children. Mrs. Seaburn, who is Nathan's teacher, and Miss Gregory, who is the other grade 3 senior teacher, and the 2 assistant teachers are also here. But Mrs. Seaburn will tell you that at a particular point in the syllabus, something came home to me. And I went to school the next day and I said, you need to come to Jamaican Parliament. You need to learn about the Jamaican Parliament. And she said, really? I said, yes, man, it's a People's Parliament. The President will be very happy to have you. And then I had a discussion with the President, and he said, absolutely. Whenever they're ready, he's more than happy to accommodate them. And thank you, Mr. President, for allowing them to be here and being so gracious in hosting them. And thank you, colleagues, as well. And with that, Mr. President, I just want to ask the Minister one quick question when she answers. I won't be here, but Senator Scott Motley will relate to me the answer. You spoke earlier about infrastructure development and renovation, and I wanted to understand the extent to which climate change is featured, because I noticed you spoke about agriculture, you spoke about health, but you did not speak about the environment, particularly climate change. And we know what climate change is doing to our children, particularly learning, and the types of classrooms we have, which have been built years ago, decades ago. So I want to understand the extent to which climate change is factored into the construction and renovation of these new classrooms. And finally, 2 weeks ago, and I really wanted to talk on the bill, but I could not be here, but I read an article that spoke to neurodivergent children. And these are principals of school who were talking about the challenges that they were having. And UNESCO, as you would be aware of this, states that 51% of pre-primary and 33% of primary children have some form of neurodivergent disease or some type of disability. And you spoke about the inclusion that the schools are undertaking. But one of the concerns I have, and perhaps you can address it in your answer, is the extent to which we are investing in our teachers to deal with children with special needs. I hear the physical infrastructure, I hear the support for our shadows, which are very important, and I commend you. But I want to know what is the support that has been given to our teachers to understand, one, to understand how to treat with them, and secondly, for them to detect, not diagnose, but to detect these children who present with some form of neurodivergent disability. Thank you, Mr. President. Thank you, colleagues.
Senator Professor Morris.
Thank you, Mr. President. And I have some quick questions to pose to the Minister. But, Mr. President...
Sorry. What are you saying, Senator Mountain? She can answer yes or no to most of them, you know. And she can say yes to all of the above. Senator Morris.
Okay, thank you, Mr. President. But one quick thing that I want to do before I ask the question is just to really congratulate and commend my very good friend, the Honourable Audrey Marks, for her appointment and promotion to the Senate. I never got the opportunity to do so before, but there is a special relationship that we have had over the years.
We know about it.
And I will have to geo-rig fence her over there, Mr. President, to make sure that she's protected throughout her tenure in the Senate. But, you know, Minister, you know you have my fulsome support and commendation. I must say, Minister, you know, I share your enthusiasm for your portfolio, and in particular, I want to commend you in terms of your approach in terms of students with disabilities in the system. But I have some quick questions here, because in 2018, I had tabled a resolution on the issue of accessibility in the education system, and it was unanimously supported and led to the Ramps in School project for Labor Day. And at the time, it was about 23% of the education system that had some form of access. So we are 7 years on, and I would want to know what Yes, yes. Where are we in terms of the extent of accessibility in these education institutions? The other thing that I want to point out, Minister, is that we have signed and ratified the UN Convention on the Rights of Persons with Disabilities, to which inclusive education is a right. And based on the general comments on Article 24 of the CRPD, state parties are to be moving away from special education institutions, save and except in extreme circumstances where there are complex disabilities. And Jamaica has an obligation to prepare a plan of action in terms of transitioning into inclusive education. And I want to know if, based on the concluding observations from the 22 review of the CRPD committee, where are we in putting together that plan of action for inclusive education? The other thing, Minister, you spoke about technological support for students in the education system, but more so for students with disabilities. Assistive technology is foundational. If we don't have the supportive technology for these students, then the education that they receive is going to be substandard. And I want to find out, in that plan that you have to roll out support in terms of technology, what is the plan for children with disabilities in the education system? And finally, Minister, based on the Patterson report, I think it was just over 30% of the children in the education system are deemed to be unable to read, write, and do maths. And based on my knowledge, right there, it tells me that a lot of these children have learning disabilities. What is the plan of the ministry to ensure that we have an active system that tracks and determines the extent of the disabling condition that these individuals have? Whether it, you know, Mr. President, in my field of expertise, I am told and I am trained that when you have a student who is consistently interrupting the class, that student have some form of learning disability. And it seems as if the member falls in that category. Mr. President, I want to find out,
you know how
Minister,
life, shall I tell you,
what plans do you have to deal with the situation of learning disability for children in the education system? Thank you, Mr. President.
Shall I tell you something? I don't know how this is, you know, because I honestly thought he was talking about Senator Brown, you know. I must tell you that. So perhaps it would be just recognized that that was not really meant to. But you all interrupt me now. That just go to show you that, you see how. Well, I did not know that, so it can just go about its way. Are you finished, Senator Morris? You finish? Senator Morris, you finish? Senator Morris, you finish? Senator Morris, Junior Senator Morris.
Thank you, Mr. President. Minister, just one question. I heard you speak about improving literacy. Has it been considered by the ministry how public libraries will be integrated into this program that you're conceptualizing? And if so, what is the current intervention that's in place?
Senator Bunting, anything from you? Minister?
Thank you, Mr.
Let me
President.
just inform you that there is nothing wrong in a yes,
I know.
no answer. No.
All right, I'm going to be, yes. Just to note that I've listened to the questions. Some of them, for the most part, I can answer them. And I mean, that's my role. I'm supposed to be able to answer questions that are asked of the portfolio. And so the first question, and I tried to write all of them down, so I'm going to go through all of them. In terms of the question about whether or not we're getting the adequate caloric intake, and remember I started writing the questions from you making the statement, and so it may not go in the right order for you. All right. So in terms of our work on this policy and generally, we have identified that children need 2,000 calories daily. And our goal in terms of our nutrition support, that's the general goal right now, is to provide a third of that through the school nutrition program. So for those who we do intervene with, it's for a third. We're trying to provide a third of that caloric requirement, which is where lunch would have been a really very important meal. You asked many things around it, and so I think there was a question about PATH students. So it is, for now, it is the PATH students who get the lunch support in our schools. So you have to be on PATH. That is the requirement that we use in order to support students. There are, in instances, children who are not on PATH, and we've all seen that. There are many children who are not on PATH who also still have nutritional needs. And through the schools, through the ministry, we do have other programs where we can provide some support. But in terms of the core support, it is for those who are on PATH. And we also encourage our schools and our guidance counselors, if they see children who are struggling, to work with the families to register them on PATH. You asked about portion sizes, meal plans, and so on. So in terms of the work that we've already done, we've done work with the nutritionists on what an appropriate portion size is and calorie intake requirement for different age groups, because it does vary by age group. We've also created some menu guides for the cooks in our schools, and we're going to be doing more of that work and providing that. You made a note of the cost of the meals per day and how much money, the subsidy that we provide for those students who are on PATH. And I've heard some principals say this is really low. I've heard other principals boast to me about how they stretch it and they add other children onto it. So I've seen different responses to it. I should note, though, that the ministry also pays the cook. So we hire a cook for each of these schools, so we pay that. And we also repair the canteen and all of that. So in terms of the whole canteen infrastructure, there is more than just the 280 that the ministry provides to the school in terms of the creation of the meal. But it is something that we are aware of, and obviously as budget allows, we want to increase that. But again, I said as budget allows. In terms of the 69,000 children additional, so all of the children who are on PATH currently get lunch. We had to make a decision, and on math exam day, Senator, I think you would understand the concept of finite resources, which means that you have a certain amount of money, and you're trying to do multiple things with it, and you're trying to make the most optimal allocation of those resources around. And so, obviously, it would be lovely to give every single child breakfast and lunch. But given the resources we had to make a decision in terms of who do we add breakfast to. And so our decision was those schools that were determined by the National Education Inspectorate, that's our quality assurance body for schools. They identified, based on their evaluations of all the schools, which were the schools that needed the most interventions. And it correlated with the schools that had more students who would have been kind of correlated with those who would be having deficiencies or would need this kind of support. And so we made the decision that we would target those 69,000 children in those schools. And that's a strategic decision based on the finite resources that we have. In terms of the question about the 10,000 laptops that are being provided, we have made a strategic shift away from devices for the students towards equipping the schools with the technology. So what we're doing is creating the lab, the computer lab with the computers that the students can use on a rotating basis. Also putting in the smart boards, putting in the smart TVs in the classrooms. And so it's, again, because of the finite resources that we have to think, with what we have, how do we get the best bang for that buck? And we felt that the best bang for the buck comes from giving the teacher the technology and putting the technology in the classroom for their use. In terms of, there were many other questions. Fencing, you had asked about fencing. I need to get back to you on the fencing numbers. I believe it's about 50, but I'd have to get back to you on how many have asked for fencing, and we would phase that in over a period of time as we get the resources to do so. But what we've done is to try to go for those that have the biggest security risks. And obviously, you know, everybody is a security risk, but you try to prioritize. And we hope we're doing the right prioritizing of it. In terms of textbooks, I had gotten a report from the ministry because I had heard some people talking about textbooks. The ministry's records show that all schools had been given their allocations of textbooks. And so if you have a school that hasn't, please let me know, because the ministry's team said they had sent out all of the allocation. But I'm very glad you brought up textbooks, because we've also been doing, the textbooks are very expensive to print. And we have started to do some as e-textbooks that students can have access to, but we've not found them to be downloaded very much, so we have to look back at that initiative, because we're doing that to try to cut the cost of printing the books, but we're realizing we have to send out the books. In terms of TVET certificates, there had been some challenges in getting the TVET certificates through. NCTVET has been working to improve on that, and that is something that I know through the PS she has been monitoring and meeting with them to ramp up the certificates being sent out. There was also a question about the tests that are being done. You asked what was being done at the diagnostic centers, and it's a wide range. So it can test for ADHD, you can test for an intellectual disability, the gamut. And usually when you go in and you do those tests, it's all-day test. It's not just asking the children something. You do activities with them, you see how they react. You also have the parents filling out forms. You also have the school, and the teacher has to fill out a form. So it's actually a very rigorous process, and that's one of the reasons why it can take so long to get the reports. And I did it privately for one of my children, and it took me months to get an appointment. And then when I got the appointment, it took me months to get the report, because it's really an involving process. But you get a very rich report. And I should note that an initiative that the CEO had been working on, after grade 5, all of the students who would have performed poorly at grade 5, all of them were assessed. UE worked with us to assess every single one of those 2,000 children. It's 2,000 children that did not perform well at grade 5. They were assessed last summer. And so that's another initiative that we have in terms of even sending out assessors into the communities to assess. There was a question too that I had about infrastructure and climate change. And that was a very good one, because a child yesterday had asked me that same question about the classroom being hot. And I had to yesterday, usually when I go around to schools, I try to wear a suit, But yesterday I was like, I'm in Portmore, I'm going to wear a dress with no sleeves. And I had to because it was really, really hot. And that's a reality. And so we've been developing new building standards for our schools. And those are related to climate change. It also looks at water harvesting as a part, because we know in many of the rural areas they have water issues. So incorporating water harvesting into the school infrastructure plan. And so we're looking at, for the new schools, how are we going to fix them? With the existing schools, we've been providing more funds for the classrooms, but we do have to look at it much bigger than that, through an actual new policy in terms of the new standards for schools, and that is currently being done by NET, or National Education Trust, that does a lot of the infrastructure work. In terms of neurodivergent children, the Senator Fraser Binns had asked about what are we doing in terms of training the teachers. And I'm very pleased to tell you that just a few months, maybe a month ago, I went to a session at Shortwood Teachers College. I was partnering with the wonderful Jamaica Teachers Association, the JTA, my best friends. I was partnering with them on a special needs, on a special needs program. They betrayed me to look at special needs. And so what we were doing is incorporating it into the training of the teachers. And so it's very important that all of our new teachers understand neurodiversity and understand the ministry's commitment to inclusive education. And what was very lovely about that session with the JTA and the ministry was that I said to the teachers, I said to them, send me a report at the end of this. Send me your recommendations on special needs and how we can implement it. And I was so pleased when I got a lovely document that said, this is what we discussed, these are our recommendations, and I'm working through those recommendations to incorporate it. And then, so it was really good. It was a good session with the teachers who are in teachers' colleges. But we're going further than that. The ministry has scholarships specifically for people who want to do teacher training specifically for special needs children. And I encourage all my colleagues to let those who are interested in this area know that the Ministry of Education has scholarships, because we need to increase the cadre of persons who have that training. So that's another initiative we have. In terms of the questions from Senator Professor Morris, you had asked how many schools have access. The last count I have is that over 400 schools have been equipped with ramps and lifts, and each year we add some more. So we're at a little over 400 now. And then in terms of, you mentioned the UN Convention on Inclusive Education. That is a priority of ours, and that's part of why we were partnering on the Shortwood Teachers College initiative to train those who are in teacher training on inclusive education, because it is a priority of ours. It's difficult though, because we know, and yesterday when I was talking to some teachers, they were saying that they went to teachers college many years ago and they weren't equipped with inclusive education techniques. And so we do have to do more work in terms of training the teachers that are in service now, in terms of understanding how to deal with a classroom with different ones. I've been to a few classrooms where I've seen where the teachers are grouping the children in different groups. And so the same Miss Francis that I told you used her computers and all of that fancy stuff, she gives the classwork to the groups based on their ability. So she has a group 1 classwork, group 2 classwork, and group 3, and they all know which group they're in. And so the classwork varies depending on where they are. And some of them do have some learning disabilities and challenges in her classroom. So you see some people using it, but not everybody is at the same level. And so we have to do more in the ministry to support the teachers there. And so I take your point there on that one. In terms of assistive technology, we have equipped the schools, especially the ones that are primarily special needs schools, with accessibility tools. And so the assistive technology, we've been doing that through e-learning. One of the things I need to figure out is if it's the appropriate technology, because the technology changes. Is it the right technology? And so I take your point there that I do need to investigate that. In terms of Senator Morris, you asked a beautiful question in terms of the libraries. And so the libraries are the lead on the national reading competition. So they're very integral in terms of pushing reading. One of the things we want, and some of the extended activities that we do in schools are also done through the libraries. But I have a different big vision for libraries. I can do another statement on libraries because I think libraries are underutilized in Jamaica. And our children could benefit more from going to the libraries, but the libraries have to be a more alive space. So this is going to be infrastructure. It needs to be a space that a child wants to go in, or even young people. Because I've looked at centers for young people. Where could young people go and have fun and sit down? And, we don't really have many of those spaces. The libraries could be re-envisioned in such a wonderful way. And I'm working with the library service now in terms of a new vision for the libraries, which I will come with and do another statement on. But I'd love, Senator Morris, if you could work with me on it, because I think it would be great if we could just think about re-envisioning libraries. I think they could be really beautiful spaces for our young people. And so I think I answered all the questions that were asked, Mr. President. Mr. President, I think I answered all of them.
Senator Bunting.
Thank you, Mr. President. Minister, I have 3 questions, but each might have a few parts. With respect to your statement, let me be clear. No child should come to school and go through a day without a proper meal. Let me start by saying, Minister, I appreciate your facility for stating the obvious with a wide-eyed sense of discovery. However, while you are new, your administration, the JLP administration, has been in office for 14 of the last 18 years, including we're now in year 10 of the second consecutive term. In the context of prioritizing finite resources, how is it that only now we're recognizing the need to allocate significant funds in this area, which has long been recognized to be underfunded? And I cannot imagine there being a higher priority than child nutrition. That's question 1. Question 2. On page 21, I believe it is, you have a table showing school repairs. And one of the schools highlighted on Region 5 is Prattville Primary. I don't know if it's one of the 42 schools you've had a chance to visit. But you will recall, though it was before you were minister, but you were in the Senate here last year when I drew the attention of the Senate to the plight of the children at Prattville Primary. This was before the hurricane, Beryl, by the way. Water was pouring in through the roof. The structure of the building was rusting away, etc. The electricals were also inundated with water. And you have here, Beryl, of course, displaced the students from the school altogether. You have here that the status of the school is 95% complete. But payments have only been 60%. And what I can tell you that no work has taken place on this school for the last couple months because, as I understand it, the contractor has not been paid. The ministry is way behind on its payments. There's a JLP MP there now, so I assume he's not collecting his salary for nothing. These classrooms were 95% when I visited at the harvest in March. the harvest celebration of the school. 2 months later, we still have the grades 2 to 6 students crammed into the infant department. The students from the infant and grade 1 are still in a church hall. This is almost at the end of the school year. They have been in the church hall for basically the entire school year up to now. They're now contemplating putting those little infants and grade 1 students on remote learning. And as anyone who has had a young child on remote learning, it doesn't work for that age group. So shut your mouth, no man.
No, but sorry, Senator Brown. Hold on. Senator Brown, Senator Bunting, you know that.
But if you
sorry, Senator Bunting and Senator Morgan. Yes. Let me say this, man. I can appreciate some amount of ribbon and so forth. It happens on both sides. But sometimes it gets a little beyond the ordinary. And then, Senator Bunting, sometimes some of your responses are a bit unparliamentary. Right? And so, unparliamentary. And when I sit here presiding over the Senate and we have that type of attitude, man, it doesn't come across well. And just remember, that is not just the persons who are in here that are observing. And sometimes you go out in the public space and some of the comments that come back from the public as to the attitude. And I've seen it sitting from here this morning and sitting in my assigned seat while the substantive president is here, and I feel uncomfortable in respect to some of the attitude that I've seen even this morning in the presence of the kids from Hillel Academy. It doesn't come across good. And Senator Bunting, your remark really a short while ago was, yes, unparliamentary. And I asked to withdraw. Senator Morgan, just tone it down a little bit for me, please. All right? So, thank you. Senator Brown, you have been behaving like that from this morning, you know. And I'm asking you, and I will, Senator Brown, I will get to the point where, Senator Brown, I'm certain that Senator Bunting can manage himself, you know. Come on, man, control yourself, man. Control yourself from your seat.
Mr. President, I think it was the minister in her statement said, let's not play politics with education. Let's not play politics with the plight of the children at primary.
Yes, Senator Bunting, the first thing I want you to do, sorry, sir, excuse me, please. Senator Bunting, excuse me, just hold a second. I made a comment and I thought you'd have said, just quickly, I've withdrawn my outburst. All right?
I've withdrawn.
Thank you. And but Senator Brown, if I have to, if
you want me, I don't care. The truth is that you must take charge.
Sorry.
And put him under manners.
All right, Senator, you find Mr. Cohen, find the appropriate thing for me, please.
That is correct. That is correct. You must do the thing fairly. You can't be one-sided. And if you must punish me for that, that's fine. I have it already. I don't need to look in.
Can I continue?
No, not as yet, not as yet.
The president is just allow them. That in the country now, what you know, time come. Yeah.
No.
What do you want to do? Tell down now. Time come, people tell down.
Not even.
I'm going to put everybody on notice. And I'm going to ask you, if you have your standing orders, or you can go on your Google and pull up the Senate standing orders. And I want you to just read Standing Order 43 and the subsections that follow thereafter. And to be honest with you, if what I'm seeing taking place this morning continues, then I'm going to apply a provision under 43. All right? Senator Bunting, I want you to just continue. Pose your questions, and let us move on. All right?
Thank you, Mr. President. Minister. A point of order.
From my understanding of...
No, Senator, no. A point of order to what I said? No, man. No. Have a seat, Senator Morris, please. Not entertaining it. Senator Bunting, continue. Senator Morris.
I'm not clear as to what it is.
I am asking, I said that...
Is it that you are going to name everybody in the Senate?
I said, read 43, Standing Order 43, and the subsections that follow under 43. And if I have to use it, I'm going to use it. That's what I said. So I'm asking you to have a seat. Please. You have no... what you're trying to come up with now is not a point of order, not entertaining it. Senator Bunting, continue with your questions.
Minister, I was interrupted midstream, so let me just recap. Prattville Primary, 29.6 million allocated, 95% complete. Only 60% or 18 million of that 29 million has been paid. No work is taking place. We're near the end of the school year, and the older kids, grades 2 to 6, are still cramped in the infant department, having spent the first term in one of 2 church halls. And the main building for grades 2 to 6, which has been substantially complete for months, is sitting there empty. Could the minister explain why the contractor hasn't been paid and why the children are being subjected to this unnecessarily, the children of Prattville Primary? And the third and final question has to do with your statement, or the sentence from your statement that says, more than 60% of our workforce lacks formal training. And this shortage of skilled labor threatens to constrain our long-term growth. Minister, I would ask you, are you aware that weak education outcomes have been identified as one of the principal constraints to growth for at least since 2007? This is not something that's threatening. And if you go to the IMF Article 4 consultation report, Annex B, and I would quote, labor productivity, real GDP per worker, that chart. It says labor productivity is significantly lower than in peer economies and has been on a downward trend, particularly since 2007. And this weak productivity performance hinders Jamaica's ability to achieve a sustainable growth path and higher living standards. When you look at the actual index for labor productivity, if we use 2000 as 100, in 2007, it was 105. Presently, it's 83. Labor productivity has declined 17% since 2000 and about 21% since 2007. Your administration has been in office for 14 of the last 18 years. Could you explain why these outcomes are as it is and why our productivity is at the bottom of the scale in the entire Caribbean and Latin America?
Thank you, Senator Bunting. Minister.
Thank you, Mr. President. I'm going to go through the questions that were just posed by Senator Bunting, and the first one was, why are we only now allocating funds for nutrition? That's not correct. I mean, we are seeing it as a problem. It's been a problem for a long time. And I think this government, if we look at the budget each year and the allocation for our school nutrition programs, it has increased significantly over time. And that is a reality because we have seen that it is an issue. I have raised it as one of the key issues, and I think over time, Jamaican sensibilities change, and I think there's been a lot of advocacy around nutrition and the importance of nutrition, and there's been a lot of talk. I know the Heart Foundation team was here. They used to put out a lot of things in terms of the non-communicable diseases and so on, and I think we now understand better the importance of nutrition. It's a similar way, and I know Senator Safar Longmore too has advocated in terms of mental health, and we talk about that much more than we used to in the past. And so what you're seeing here though is us being able to allocate even more for nutrition than we ever have. And that is a good thing. It's a very good thing that we're doing that now. And the good thing is that we actually have the budget to do it because of the good fiscal management of this administration. And so I'm expecting that as our country continues on this path and as we move into the third term, that we are going to be able to even put more in school nutrition as our economy grows. In terms of Prattville Primary, the report you have was our April 28 report, and while you were speaking, I was not very pleased because I was hearing you say that babies were going to have to go online, which never works, and that students were crammed into some classrooms. So while you were speaking, the contractor was contacted, and the contractor has indicated that he has subsequently been paid. The contractor has said that the students have now returned to the school. The region, well, I'm just telling you what they've reported. All right, I'm telling you what the region is saying.
Senator Bunting, you have posed your questions and you have made your comments, and the minister is providing you with the best response that she has.
All right.
So, Senator Brown? Yes. Thank you.
So, I'm giving you what the region has given. And you've asked a question, and we have to consult with our technocrats who are on the ground. I'm not at Prattville today. I'm here in the Senate, so I have to ask the persons who have been employed, right? And so the contractor has said that the contractor has paid. The region has said that they are 95% completed with it, and that the majority of the students have now returned to the school, is what I have been told, and it's been confirmed through several different sources. And they've also confirmed that no students will be online and that they plan to finish the work. The contractor has indicated the intent to finish the work by next week. Now, I take any of these issues very seriously because our children obviously are important and they need to be in an environment that's conducive to learning. And so I don't have an issue with you raising it with me, and I'm open to any of those, and I will always check on them. And this is the report that I have received. And I know they'll be reaching out to the principal to figure out what's going on here in terms of this. But that's the report that I have from our technocrats. You noted also in your third question about a constraint on growth, and that productivity is a constraint on growth, and the entire issues in our education system is a constraint on growth. And you're correct. And we saw that in the 2004 Davis report. We saw it again in the Patterson report of 2022, where we basically saw that between 2004 and 2022, we never really got a handle on education, even though we had, you know, a big commission with really important people looking really well at our education system. And I think a part of that, and if we're honest with each other, is that we didn't have a strong economy where we could invest in many areas. We couldn't invest in education to the extent we wanted to. We couldn't invest in our police force in the way we wanted to. There was so much we couldn't do in the way we wanted to. And I'm glad that through bipartisan efforts, we have been able to get the economy a lot more stable and into the position where we can have more resources allocated. And so I think the charge that's been given to me by the Prime Minister is to fix the education system. And that is what I am working on, and that's what I'm asking you to work with me on in fixing it. And in terms of Prattville and that situation, I take it very seriously. And so I will be doing my own checks. I mean, I did on the phone, and I will continue to check to make sure the children are back in school.
But I'm not relying on the technocrats. I have visited that school regularly, and I can tell you the grades 2 to 6, up to this morning when you started speaking in the Senate, were still crammed into the infant department, and the infant department and grade 1 were still operating from church hall, and they had basically come to the end of their welcome because they've been doing that since September last year. So I'm not relying on third party. I'm giving it to you firsthand.
Senator Brown.
Thank you, President. I like how you have silenced the interrupters. Commendation to you, sir, for doing that. Senator Bunting raised the issue of Prattville. I want to raise the issue on same page 21 of your report of the Discovery Bay Primary School. Just a preface to say I represent backside workers in the area who are parents of children at school. And I've been told that the construction of 4 classrooms have stalled for some time, that the work has been literally abandoned, and I note your report that it's 30% completed. I'd like to ask the Minister, just to satisfy the public, whether or not next week you could do a media tour to confirm whether or not what technocrats are telling you is true or not. Because information coming to me, which I'd like you to confirm or deny, is that the work on those 4 classrooms. First, a site was chosen that had water problem, waterlogged. And now, the new site, some clearance took place. But that's all. And when I'm seeing 30% of a 4 classroom, I'd like to see black and steel in the ground. And forgive me, the Ministry of Education, I don't know if it's because the technocrats mislead the minister. I've seen ministers becoming guests of Her Majesty, not at King's House, but at some other house.
Sir,
and so
Senator Brown.
I'm urging you, Minister, to double check.
Senator Brown.
Yeah.
All right. So,
I'm asking her to double check.
That's not really a question, you know. That's a recommendation.
No, I'm asking her.
So,
well, let me put
Senator
that
Brown.
Have you double checked? Have you double checked the information being given so that the country may, by you, not be misled? May it please you, Mr.
Thank you very much, Senator Brown.
I know.
And that's how you do it. You pose it in the form of a question. Good. So, Minister.
Thank you. Thank you, Mr. President. And I just want to start in my response by saying, you know, the leadership of the ministry is here, and that the team in the building department and the team in the ministry, I know they're working hard, and I think they do their best to provide truthful information to the ministry and to the public. And so I stand with the technocrats in the ministry, and I hear you in terms of double checking. I will be in St. Anne, I will go by, and I will double check, but I will say that, you know, the information, we have to trust our public servants. They're doing a lot of work. They're doing hard work. And they're doing, yes. And I think we have a PS, and I'd like to note also that we do a meeting on the repairs of our schools and infrastructure work for the schools. Every other week there is a meeting. And in those meetings, you'll hear me or the PS chairing it. And we'll say, why is this 30%? It was 30% last week, it's 30% again this week. What is going on? There's actually one school that hasn't moved, and I plan to go down to see that school myself. And so there is we do actively look at the data, and I'm very much about openness, so I give you the data. I don't give you a sanitized version of it. I give you the data. And so I will check on that particular school, because it is one that you have raised, and I admire you, and you know I admire you, and so I will check on it, Senator Brown, for you, and I will tell you what I find when I go myself. All right, thank you. All right, thank you. I don't think they're setting me up.
Thank you very much, Minister and members. And you know, if we just abide by the rules and do the thing in an orderly fashion, you will get the appropriate questions in, and you will get the appropriate responses, or the best responses that you possibly can get. Well, I think I'm fair in everything once I come on this chair. So I said I am fair when I sit up here and seek to be balanced. But I will always apply the rules as is applicable. And sometimes we try to create an impression out there in the public that it is a free-for-all in here, and if a person is not able to speak or say whatever they wish to say, it is that somebody is suppressing. It is not suppressing. We have rules that govern the operations of this parliament. And the rules have to be applied so that good order is maintained, and persons who are observing can appreciate and understand what is being said in their parliament. They want to get it too, right? So that is why the rules are there. All right, so Minister.
Mr. President, it's not contemplated that we will be doing any more business today, so I ask that the Senate adjourn for a date to be fixed.
And that is the question on the floor. Those in favor? Those against? The Senate stands adjourned for a date to be fixed.
basic searching to see what is already on government websites. If you don't see what you're looking for, make a formal ATI request by completing the application form on the ATI site or sending a letter or email. And remember, you don't have to say why you need it. It is your right to know. Make sure you send your request to the right agency, and once they confirm receipt, they get 30 calendar days to provide the information, a maximum of 60 if extra time is needed. Yes, I know you want access to everything, but sensitive documents are protected from the public for up to 20 years. For example, documents that would expose a citizen's personal privacy, or those dealing with cabinet discussions, the Governor General's office, or information on the investigative activities of the security forces. Any public officer who tries to destroy or hide any official document can be sanctioned. And if you're having difficulties, the ATI unit will help. So, what if the chemicals in the mosquito spray are toxic? What if the agency did not even try to get back the money they paid out? Call or email your MP. Share the concern, because as your elected representative, they can represent your questions to the government ministers in the House. Remember, it is the job of parliamentarians to monitor and hold the government to account on your behalf. Is not every country gives citizens this kind of power, you know? And at 20 years we have this law, and we barely use it. So access information and mind your business, Jamaica. Visit jampja.org today to see what information we access to make it easier for you to hold the government to account. Let's do our job to make Jamaica land we love, Jamaica land we own, and Jamaica land we run well. A message from the Jamaica Accountability Meter Portal, funded by the European Union in partnership with the Private Sector Organization of Jamaica.
The Live Good initiative is aimed at promoting healthy, respectful relationships at home, at school, and in our communities. Let's return to the days when members of our communities all participated in rearing our children with kindness, good manners, and discipline. Let's respect each other. Let's become our brother's keeper. Let's replace violence with understanding. Let's all strive to live good.
A message from the Ministry of National Security.